Okay, that's right. You are in the RA arena on Unsurpassable Justice. Yes, yours truly, Brother RA in the house, yes. And YouTube is working for a brother, but I still don't see the show that I'm hoping that the folks there. Yeah, there it is. That show right there. It's on Brother RA's site, but you won't see this one on YouTube. Thank you, Dave, and that team. But here, let's get back to the business at hand. Brother RA on the air, 1 o'clock and 56 seconds. And welcome into the palatial suite. Oh, did I do that yet? Can y'all see that? Here, let's make sure y'all can see that. Lest we forget. You see that man's back? Let's see if we can go to a different shot. That any better? Can you see all of that? Lest we forget. Happy Thanksgiving. And we will continue where we left off last week. But in the meantime, I'd like to go ahead and share with you some thoughts as we move along. You know, I've been watching these DVDs and whatnot. Make sure I'm right there. And the Equalizer, he was very anal retentive. Always had to have his knife and his fork and his plate all in the right place, but he equalized a lot of things. And I hope as Brother R.A. raising consciousness or stimulating thought, you know, you tap in to some of your divine energy and recognize the greater potential of who you are. Now, that's Equalizer. That's much like this, you know, the yin-yang symbol, balancing oneself. Do you balance yourself? And just reading the particular words of the Tao. Just information and knowledge, no particular religion, but becoming one with nature. I really enjoyed this one. It wasn't so much about LeBron James. It was more about the black man coach, the Melanin Dominant black coach, the father of Drew Sr. And he took those 5 boys, even though he would have been a better, or he desired to be a football coach, but his son wanted to play basketball, and so he altered his desires to accommodate his child, and then drew in a whole, the Fighting Irish, St. Vincent, St. Mary, and took them all the way, more than a game. Yeah, life is definitely more than a game. And, this, I'm just thinking about myself and preserving some of the knowledge and information. And you know how they took the raw footage of Muhammad Ali and updated it so it looked a little, it didn't look like it was shot on VHS tape. I got my little contraption here doing the same thing. This will take, where did I do with that damn thing? Oh, okay. Well, this will take a cassette tape. Y'all know what a cassette tape is, right? take the cassette tape and digitize it to an MP3. So I have quite a few cassette tapes to digitize since I've been on the air since '88, but been at CCTV since '92. And yeah, just preserving the Brother R.A. legacy, the knowledge and information. And lo and behold, then I had to, excuse me, huh? The September issue dealing with Vogue and whatever that woman's name. I mean, I gotta be light as a feather. My chi has to drop. But it's like melanin recessive inbred mutant albino with a calcified pineal gland talking about fashion and what is important in fashion. Notice I'm wearing a white t-shirt with my full belly. But I was just blown. I don't even think I watched all of this. It was that devastating, acknowledging the marketing and media. And the rest of the show, we will hear the rest of the conversation of mind control. And Sister shared something about how they already have computers. They can put a human face on it, and then it can actually have intellectual dialogue or conversation and recognize you. I mean, we already have drones in the NFL flying and, not only drones, but what about the information that are we being equal, melanin dominant, melanin recessive? Are we reaching a particular point of balance, of awareness, of consciousness, of self? Let me get through this real quick. I watched a different form of Tai Chi, thought that was interesting. And Jet Li and War and Jason Statham, interesting storyline. War. And I didn't get to see this one. I'm going to have to renew this. Act of Valor. You notice the number of enlistment and marketing for the military during the NFL or on television now? Are we being sabotaged? And then relationships, the newlyweds. Do you really know your partner? And Fluffy was very funny. That brother, he's definitely won my viewership. So, all this bringing back to equal. Are we equal? Do we have enough self-esteem and self-confidence? Do we recognize our divinity as who we are as melanin dominant black people? All right, shut up. Well, we're going to continue right where we left off from last week with Cathy O'Brien and Mark Phillips. Mark Phillips was talking, and then you get to hear Cathy O'Brien, or Cathy Phillips, discussing her particular issues, being the subject of CIA mind control. So without further ado, I'm going to shut up and play this for you. And as I play this for you, I'm going to stand in the mirror and do my deep meditation. And oh, that's right too, the Earth's axis. Did you know in the wintertime, with the Earth's axis at a 32-degree tilt, it's pointing close? I think it's January 2nd or 3rd that the Earth is closer to the sun at any other point in time of the year. Even though it's winter for us, we're the North Pole and we're closer to the sun. But okay, enough, shut up.
prostituting a woman and her small daughter. At that time, the child was about 7 years old, to various government leaders. And of course, that in itself, I figure that that's none of my business, except for the fact that Alex Houston was doing this for the Central Intelligence Agency, and he was doing this and maintaining this woman under trauma-based mind control. In other words, he was maintaining her under a regular amount of water, food, sleep deprivation, and using stun guns and other devices to torture her and her daughter, to the point to where they were totally compliant, and their suggestibility levels were off the scale. When I met this Cathy the first time, I thought that she was just a blonde-headed country music type bimbo, and frankly wanted nothing to do with her. I was totally unimpressed, and honestly, I thought perhaps that was why Alex had kept me from meeting his so-called family. And that was not, of course, the case. Alex, showing you that the right hand doesn't know what the left hand's doing, he had no clue, and no one tipped him off as to my previous background. Of course, I never told anyone, and until the Defense Department and the FBI interviewed my ex-wife and my son, they didn't even know. It was in 1988, though, I made the decision after a few weeks of doing my homework and finding out that it was true, that this Alex Houston was involved with the CIA, and he was involved in bringing in drugs to this country, and was even able to find out where he was stashing his money and this sort of thing. I then made the decision to get Cathy and her daughter out of his control, get them into some sort of psychiatric professional help, and then I was going to go back to Hong Kong and maintain my business. That was actually, the factory was in the Shenzhen province of southern China in the industrial zone. But after getting them out, I couldn't find anybody to help them, because at that period in 1988, there wasn't anybody that was treating what was called then polyfragmented multiple personality disorder. It's now known as dissociative identity disorder. I mean, you don't have multiple personalities, you only have one. But in Cathy and her daughter's case, their personas were fragmented. In addition to being split off, they were fragmented. And I had very little knowledge about how to help someone like this. I knew what not to do, but I didn't know what to do. So I was tutored along the way, so I took them to Alaska.
Before you continue,
friends,
Mark,
and convinced everybody that I'd pretty much lost my own mind, and that I wasn't going to tell anything, and I had been a secret keeper all my life, so I suppose that was the reason I wasn't killed at the time. But we had some cooperation through, I did, through some friends in Congress, and one particular congressman who is still in Congress, and one particular senator who is will soon be out of the Senate.
Okay, so that's the end of that particular cassette tape, and now we're gonna move on to side 2 of the cassette tape and pick up where he left off, I hope.
Lost my own mind, and that I wasn't going to tell anything, and I had been a secret keeper all my life.
Just a little bit of overlap.
I suppose that was the reason I
This is
wasn't
2001 interview that I did with them.
We had some cooperation through, I did, through some friends in Congress, and one particular congressman who is still in Congress, and one particular senator who is will soon be out of the Senate. I should say, they were more or less instrumental in helping me stay alive. In addition to some people that I knew within U.S. Customs and other branches of federal law enforcement that I won't mention.
Mark, before
Yes.
you continue, let me ask, let me just make sure I'm understanding. Okay, you'd gone into this business arrangement with Alex Houston dealing with this Chinese corporation, and then you became aware of Alex Houston's activities of dealing in drugs, prostitution, dealing with what is it called when you deal with a child? She's 7, so he's selling this child to pedophiles. Is that what?
Well, he was prostituting both Cathy and her daughter to whomever he was directed to prostitute them to, in addition to anyone that he chose as well. But yes, when I became aware of that, and I became aware of the fact that he was maintaining them under trauma-based mind control, I wasn't aware that
something that you were familiar with, mind-based.
Something I was familiar with, but something I certainly didn't believe that was in the private sector beyond certain religious cults. I knew, of course, knew about Jonestown and Jim Jones's operation and a few other cult-type operations, and I knew the mob used it in certain cases.
How can we get our listeners to understand that this is going on? Because this is the first time we are opening folks' mind's eye.
Oh.
They're not. How can we demonstrate or elaborate that this is, or is that a question maybe for Cathy to
No,
answer?
I think I can answer it. I think Cathy can elaborate on it. And I'm not using this as a commercial, please, Brother Wright. What I'm saying is this: the best source of information is from the source itself. And the Freedom of Information Act has allowed some incredible documentation to be leaked out quite legally. We became recently in possession of a file of Dr. Sidney Gottlieb, who was more or less the founding father for the CIA's MK-Ultra mind control project. Dr. Sidney Gottlieb's files there's 37,000 files, and they're on CD-ROM, and they're available at our website, and they're $30 for the entire set. And it's they can go to our website at trance, TRANCE, and then a dash formation.com or .org. It's a mirror site, and they can order. Or they can wrestle through the Freedom of Information Act.
Can you repeat that website again?
From the government. But there's a number of people that claim that the government won't ship them.
Can you repeat that website again?
Sure, it's trance, TRANCE. That's www.trance, and then a dash, little dash mark, formation.com.
Very good. Okay, go ahead, continue. I'm sorry.
And people can go to that site and order through our distributor the CD-ROM that is the Freedom of Information Act largest compiled and least redacted set of files on the MK-Ultra project. You know, the MK-Ultra project was declared by 5 different presidents as they weren't going to do it anymore. And in the hearings in 1977 that Senator Frank Church launched against the CIA after the wife of a political, like parliament minister in Canada, she had gone into a hospital in Montreal, and a Dr. Ewing Cameron, who, by the way, was the founder of the American Psychiatric Association. This Dr. Cameron was an MK-Ultra torture scientist, and he was running for the CIA, using CIA money, at this hospital in Montreal, Canada. He was just taking anyone that came through the front door and running them through horrific mind control studies. Actually, stuff that I to this day I don't understand why he was doing it, because this was being done from the 50s all the way up through the 60s, and that information had already been understood, and the research had already been established years before by not only our country, because we got into mind control research as early as 1931, and under different names, but nevertheless, it was active in this country. And by 1933, we had quite a bit of research on it ourselves, but nothing to compare to what Hitler and Himmler had put together, and nothing to compare to what is available now technologically. See, trauma-based mind control, as horrible as it sounds, it requires someone with some expertise, and it requires a hands-on type of control. Whereas the type of technologies that they have now for gaining external control of a human mind are technological, and they're much more frightening than what we're talking about. And what we're talking about, as you indicated, a lot of people don't even know exists. So we do have documentation provided by our own government through the Freedom of Information Act. And in addition to that, if anybody wants more, we hold probably another, I would say another 25 to 30,000 federally released documents that are declassified, formerly top secret, and some of them are formerly above top secret, that have all been declassified. The government considers this stuff ancient history now. They don't care who has it.
So let's okay, so we understand you put it out there that if people don't believe what they're hearing, they can do the reading and research. They can go to the website www.trans-formation.org or .com, and you have a CD-ROM full of government documents that you could look at. And now that you set up the scenario, you said you met Alex Houston and you were introduced to Cathy O'Brien, who was his wife at that time, and you found out that he was prostituting her and her daughter to whoever. And now I wanna introduce Cathy into the conversation. We set the foundation, we laid it all out. You see the picture. Now I want to talk to Cathy O'Brien, a victim.
As a survivor.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not much in the victim space. I'm so solution oriented, and I spell solution with an S-O-U-L. The ultimate solution to this exposure of mind control that we're doing here, and I really appreciate this opportunity to get the information out, is knowledge is our only defense against mind control. And while Mark is absolutely providing wonderful opportunities for people to arm themselves with information and documentation, I tend to look at things more from the perspective of once people's eyes are open to the truth and know that the reality of mind control exists, they're going to start knowing what questions to ask. When you can think to ask the questions, you can think to find the answers. And it's time that the reality of mind control is brought to light, because it's being used on a mass scale to really manipulate all of us.
No doubt. No doubt. We have been manipulated. Now, Cathy, if you could just elaborate a little bit on how you got inducted into being victimized by the United States government and the CIA in this MK Ultra program, or Project Monarch. If you could make a distinction and just tell us a little bit so that we can see with our mind's eye.
Yeah, I appreciate that. My experience was quite extreme, but mind control, since it's a sliding scale, my experience will open people's eyes to not only the reality of the kind of robotic mind control that I experienced, but also what is happening in society today, how it's used by terrorists and terrorism, and the kind of social engineering that's been going on in our society that's really keeping us all divided by race, religion, and gender, and every other silly, trivial thing, when in fact, truth is what will unite us all. So with that said, I certainly would like to give insight into my victimization and what happened to me. I was born in 1957 in Muskegon, Michigan, to a multi-generational incest-based family. And that means, of course, that my mother and my father were both sexually abused, and therefore they were sexually abusing me. So I was sexually abused as far back as I can remember, and that is what made me a prime candidate or a chosen one for MK Ultra mind control. As Mark mentioned, the Nazi and fascist scientists have been brought into the country, and mind control was already in full swing by the time that I was born. And at that time, a criminal faction in control of our government was very much interested in the proliferation of mind control, not only what Adolf Hitler knew and what the Hitler-Himmler research had produced, but how that could be advanced with technology combined with information that the CIA was compiling, and also information that, in my case, particularly, that the Catholics had learned through things like the Crusaders and the Spanish Inquisition. This is where people knew what the effects of trauma were on the human mind, and sexual abuse of a child to experience incest is certainly a strong form of trauma. And it was one that was sufficient to have created the dissociative identity disorder, which is a strong basis for mind control, so that the government was very much interested in finding children like myself to be raised in MK Ultra mind control. The way this was done, my father was supplementing the family income with proceeds from child pornography, and he not only had been sexually abusing me, but he was also using me in this child pornography. This criminal faction of the government that is still in control today, this criminal faction was interested in targeting children like myself for mind control, so they were sanctioning the local Michigan mafia child pornography ring. They actually sanctioned it. This shows where justice starts to erode, I think, right there. But nevertheless, they had found a video of me and approached my father and told him he could receive immunity from prosecution if he would sell me into MK Ultra mind control. And my father, of course, was eager to do that, and so much so he went on to have 5 more children to raise in the project, so there were 7 of us in all.
So, Cathy,
Ray, I'll introduce something to her. Father has a 6th grade education, and he was a worm digger for local fishermen, and was just supplementing the family income with child pornography. When in fact now he is one of the chief executive officers of one of the largest U.S. government defense departments. In a subcontractor capacity, he manufactures the camshafts for every vehicle that the military uses, aftermarket camshafts. Mm-hmm. And
yeah.
I mean, this is where he evolved from and into as a result of his selling his family into this hideous project.
So that means the United States government used our tax dollars and paid your father to sell you into a scientific mind control type of program called MK Ultra.
That's right, and the project, this Project Monarch aspect, was the genetic mind control study that was actually focused on the multi-generational incest-based aspects of it. And since I had been sexually abused from such an early age, my sexuality had been heightened, and it was certainly a strong part of my victimization, particularly during the Reagan-Bush administration when I was used on a White House Pentagon level.
And I am just discussing folks that tell me my vote matters. And it was just Veterans Day, and we're getting ready for Thanksgiving, and what is that, lest we forget? I'm just bringing up certain issues to illuminate the situation and discuss, it's like, is the marketing in the media dispensing techniques and tactics of mind control? And melanin dominant people are not tapping in to their divinity? Just a question. That's my role, to stir the pot and cause people to think. I'll shut up now.
The way that I went from being sold into the project to such a high level is that the local politician who approached my father originally to offer him immunity from prosecution was Gerald Ford. And this is the same Gerald Ford, of course, that headed up the Warren Commission that supposedly investigated the Kennedy assassination and went on to become the unelected president of the United States.
No. Gerald Ford, the president,
Absolutely. The unelected one, that's right. And he was, as his political career escalated, so too did the level of my victimization, so that I ended up on a White House Pentagon level, ultimately totally robotic, completely dissociative, unable to have any free thought. I had, by that time, the trauma had been so severe that I had no ability to think for myself, no ability to reason, no conscious awareness. Since I had no conscious awareness, I really had no concept of time. And the kind of mind control that I ended up being thrust into was absolutely, totally robotic. I could only do exactly what I was told to do.
Now, would you be able to know to brush your teeth or go to the bathroom, or explain? I'm kind of befuddled here, where someone would have to tell you everything you needed to do, and you're a human being?
Well, I didn't have any ability to think for myself, and it was very much along the same lines of the kind of mind control programming, for example, that's gone into our global education system. The global education system is producing some very, very serious problems that have resulted in extreme violence all across the country in the school systems by little kids. Ultimately, what happens is the ability to critically analyze or to think, to utilize information in any kind of creative way is disrupted through a very deliberate and methodic method of mind conditioning that includes sleep, food, and water deprivation, extreme trauma, manipulation of the subconscious mind through a subliminal language technique, which is known as neuro-linguistic programming, or NLP. And
which, by the way, is a good thing, not a bad thing.
well, it's just the language of the subconscious. There's good and bad and everything. It's how people use the information that they have. And I think the biggest problem is when information is suppressed and people don't have the ability to, don't have a knowledge base at all of what's happening. But I didn't have any, since I didn't have the ability to critically analyze, I lost my free thought and my free will, and ultimately all soul expression. And it reached the point where during the Reagan-Bush administration, where I could only do exactly what I was told to do. And
Cathy,
that was to carry out various covert operations that I certainly wouldn't have willingly participated in at all.
Mark, let me pull you back in this conversation here, because we just talked about that. I'm sorry, what was that term you just talked about? You said it wasn't a bad thing, it's necessary.
Oh, are you speaking of neurolinguistics?
Neurolinguistics.
Yes.
Okay.
Language of the unconscious or subconscious, however you want to denote it. Neurolinguistics is usually practiced by lawyers. It's used within the advertising field.
That's why I want to pull you in. I want you to tell me maybe how this neurolinguistics is maybe used in the media today with advertising.
Well, all advertising, I should say all slick advertising, and I don't mean slick as in crooked, I mean slick as in perfected, uses a form of speaking to your conscious mind as well as your subconscious mind. And that was really how I became successful in my business. Is I studied NLP voraciously while I was working for the government and working for the Ampex Corporation as well, because I wanted to follow I suppose you might say, a family tradition. My father was in advertising and marketing, and it seemed to run through our family. I was most interested in this particular business because I enjoyed being able to present things to people in such a manner that they would act on it, on what was presented to them. With Capital International Airways, for instance, we flew flights, charter flights for large groups to various destinations all over the world, and advertised or put together advertising for Capital. As a matter of fact, received an award or two for some of the stuff that I did. I wasn't boasting about this because anybody that knows the basis of neurolinguistics and how it works could tell you that this is quite accurate. But I would tell people that they don't have to actually read the advertisement that's placed in a travel magazine, for instance. All they had to do was just turn the page, and your eye and your mind recorded what was on that page without you consciously being aware of it. And as a result of that, you would have a desire, now that you had the corporate identity set in your head about Capital International Airways, you also had an idea of what Capital International Airways could do for you. And it was, the worm would turn as the person would continue reading. I would have another ad placed in an appropriate place within that magazine where my market target was going to read a particular article, or I felt they would. And then they would see an ad that would draw them into some place that we were trying to fill an aircraft to send a full plane to. And it worked quite well. So well, in fact, that I was promoted within 2 months from the director of advertising to director of sales and advertising.
So when you're talking about advertising, marketing that is used not only in magazines, televisions, billboards, it basically plays on both your conscious and subconscious level. I mean, I know that impulse buying, that's why they place the certain things around the counter at the
that's point of purchase marketing. Now, that's different. That does play a certain role in subliminal marketing, but a very insignificant one when you compare it to some of the ads, for instance, for getting people to join the military. Government military ads are some of the best for subliminals and for neurolinguistic programming that I have ever witnessed. That, along with automobile ads and perfume ads, those are the top three. And then it goes into some of the technologies from there. Pentium has got some extraordinary ads for the Pentium processor, for instance, for corporate identity ads. They've got some extraordinarily well done.
How could I, as a common layperson, identify these particular ads that work on my subconsciousness?
Well, the first thing you'll notice is of course, if you're watching television, for instance, is just turn your head away from the television set and dim the lights in the room, and you'll see these large bursts of white light. What that does is it actually changes your brain chemistry. For instance, that's just for openers. That strobe effect has an impact on your subconscious to make you more suggestible by literally changing your brain's chemistry. Now, if you want to really know how it's all working, though, is to just simply look up NLP, or neuro-linguistic programming. And once you've gotten the basis of an understanding of how NLP works, or the language of the unconscious works, you can play with it yourself with someone that doesn't even know you. That's always the best one to start with, and begin to apply it I've had NLP experts that have come forth to me, and they say, you know, you apparently know a great deal about NLP. I said, why? He said, because you never use the word try. I said, that's correct. If you use the word try, it's self-defeating. And when you're told that when someone tells you they're going to try to do something, what they in essence have told you is no, they're not going to do it, or they will fail if they try. Pardon the pun.
Okay, now, well, you just talked about bursts of white flashlights. Now, let's say, we're talking about trauma-based mind control, and how does, say, the police lights or the lights on top of a police cruiser impact and affect particular individuals?
The color has a lot to do with it, too. If you'll notice, the color of the police lights changed from red to blue. We have three colors that we associate with immediately in our minds. If you go into a grocery store, you'll notice that most of the labels on most of the products are either yellow, red, or green, or a combination of the three. You won't see many black and white cans. You won't see many gray and blue cans. You're going to see red, white, and green. Red, green, and yellow. Pardon me. Blue. The blue lights have a very, very special impact on the brain, particularly the color blue that is used on, say, a police cruiser. And they've gone from having a revolving light inside those, we call them gumball machines, those police cruiser lights, to a strobe light. And those strobe lights are extraordinarily effective in getting your attention. Not only do they go a great distance, but they also grab your attention on a subconscious level. And if it's blue, you'll have a tendency to stop rather than to try to make some emergency movements, as you would with red. With red, you try to figure out a way to pull over or find some way to move. That's what reason that red is on fire engines and blue is on police cars. Because police cars, they want you to stop, and whereas a fire engine has red lights, and they don't want you to stop. They want you to just get out of their way. And of course, the yellow is used on other types of emergency vehicles, and that is just simply to say that I am in an emergency situation. Please move over. So, and in some states they use for wrecker services and things like that, they use a combination of red and yellow, but never blue. Blue is reserved for police.
So then all of us...
Hence the reason that the helmets on the United Nations, pardon my pun, peacekeepers, the ones with the rifles and the guns, they all have blue helmets.
So then we have all been played and are utilized, I guess governments and advertisers utilize all kinds of marketing strategies, bursts of light, color. All of us have been victimized by these particular tenets of mind control, if you will.
Exactly.
I used to call it utilized, though, and now I agree with you. Victimized is a better word. Excuse me, Cathy.
Oh, that's fine. So I was just wanting to jump right in on that word trauma again, and how it does affect the mind manipulation, because whenever trauma occurs, the subconscious mind is far more suggestible. It's just wide open, ready to accept information in, and it doesn't have, the subconscious mind doesn't deal with information the same way our conscious mind does, because it doesn't discern so well. It just accepts information in. So anytime trauma occurs in our society, like just happened with the terror at the World Trade Towers, then we've got to realize that at a time like that, we're more suggestible. The criminals in control of our country right now are acutely aware of that fact. So when we're traumatized, they're busy, they're in action to manipulate the subconscious mind to readily accept any controls that they're wanting to place on us at that time. And that's something that people need to be aware of everywhere, that the more we know about mind control and the more we know how it works in conjunction with trauma, the more we can safeguard ourselves against it. That's why I said at the beginning of this conversation that knowledge is our only defense against mind control. It's like we evolve with the knowledge.
No doubt, no doubt. And that's why we have real black talk, where we can drop knowledge and open up the mind's eye. But, Cathy, let me come back to you, and you, since you referenced 911, and that's where the two planes ran into the building. I call it 911. It did happen on that day, and that is a day of emergency. And Mark, just a reference, when you see 911 in emergency vehicles, that's a red light, and that is some kind of a suggestion to us too. But let's examine, since you brought it up, and I do want to get to that point. How do you think the powers that be are utilizing the trauma that occurred on 911 to maybe reach their goal of one world government?
Well, Cathy, I think you ought to really respond to this, although I'll be happy to.
No, that was for Cathy, because you've been talking too much, Mark.
Well, I've got so many aspects of this. I write poetry from time to time now just to release emotion, because it actually puts emotion to the logic part of the brain to move a pen, and it really helps to write. And I wrote some poetry on 911 pertaining to just that and the effect that it is having on us. And I just finished one a few minutes ago, just before we went on the air here, about a united nation, because right while everybody's traumatized, we keep hearing how we're a united nation. And I think the point that the people the criminals in control of our country and our information and our medias right now are missing is that people have naturally united through this, because the terror was so significant, it just shocked us to our knees. It shocked people to their souls, where they're taking a second look and they're thinking again for themselves. They're starting to look a little bit further and wondering what is going on and what is happening.
So then it's possible that we, the powers that be, did it ourselves so that it would advance a particular agenda, and it wasn't necessarily some outside forces. Is that a possibility?
Personally, from everything that I know, it's a very strong possibility, particularly how we interweave through this. And it's detailed in our book, Transformation of America, that the particular operations and all that I was used in were, for example, the Iran-Contra, the funding of the Afghanis to stop the evil empire of the time, the Soviet Union. So we were actually funding the same people that we're calling terrorists today. It's a vicious cycle where mind control breeds terror, terror breeds mind control, and the same handful of criminal minds have been in place and in power for far too long. It doesn't have to do with the United States per se. It has to do with a criminal faction with a new world order agenda that believes the only way to, quote, world peace is through mind control of the masses. I know from having experienced mind control that if you don't have free thought, you don't have free will. And if you don't have free will, you don't have soul expression. What kind of world peace could we possibly have if people don't have any soul expression? There's something very, very wrong with their perspective, their agenda, and it's time that we the people, with soul, united in love, purpose, and cause, and stop the few from the mass destruction that's going on today.
No doubt. The few. I coined Noam Chomsky's particular phrase, the minority of the opulent. Those that are the powers that be are in control so that they can continue this disparity and maintain their opulence.
They do, and they keep us divided. They keep us pointing at each other, and they come up with racial issues that aren't even real. They come up with religious differences and genders, because if they can keep us divided, then that keeps them just ever so slightly ahead. When in fact, I wrote one of the particular poems I wrote is called Minority Majority, Because if we look beyond what we're being conditioned for and socially engineered for and divided for, if we look beyond that, we're going to find out that we are the majority. We're a majority of minorities all together united. We are far more than that small minority that's been in control of all of us, misleading us by suppressing pertinent information, particularly in the area of mind control. They believe that secret knowledge equals power, and I believe that if we tell their so-called secrets, their power erodes, and people can just naturally unite in peace and love and cause.
No doubt, no doubt. We do need to figure out how we can stop the divide and conquer. And one of the lessons that I teach as a media literacy specialist is coming from, I don't know whether it's true or not, I don't know, but they talk about Willie Lynch in 1712 wrote this particular book called The Willie Lynch Let's Make a Slave Kit. And the tenets used is divide and conquer the people of color. And we have the good hair, the bad hair, we have the fat, we have the skinny, we have the tall, we have the dark skin versus the light skin, and all of these tenets. And actually, you had referenced something earlier, it made me think of the Bolshevik Revolution, where the capitalists actually upheld the socialist side just so that there was a divide and conquer between the United States and the democracy and the socialists. And
yeah, I think where they've made their mistake, they've misjudged us because they haven't considered the strength of soul and the power of love. They really made a mistake there. They believe that the trauma that was happening right now would just be able to further divide all of us, and they tell us we're united. They tell us how to. Have you ever noticed they don't tell us how to think, but they tell us what to think? That the polls tell us what to think. That if we're part of the majority, we think this way. When in fact, what's actually happened is that people were shocked so deeply. It's like they got new priorities. They're looking at things different. The things that used to be that they have been conditioned to think are important as far as racial differences and religious differences and everything, all of a sudden just look more trivial in light of the need to be able to survive, to be able to make it through this horrible period that the whole globe is in right now. And I do believe that love is the most powerful force in the universe and will ultimately overcome them, because without love, they keep misjudging us, and they don't know how strong we really are. They're not considering the soul that we all do have that does bind us much stronger than their social engineering differences.
well, let you know, the clock isn't usually my friend. We're just about to run out of time, and I will get you back on next week so that we can continue our discussion and understanding the tenets of mind control and how we as the mere peons, the serf, the cannon fodder, are being played on a regular basis, and how we need to go ahead and juxtapose this miseducation and misinformation, as Cathy talked about with this Education 2000 agenda. Did you have any closing thoughts for this particular segment, 30 seconds or less?
Well, just to say thank you very, very much for this opportunity, and by this time next week, I'm sure the world will have changed again completely.
Cathy?
Oh, I'm sure. It's truth that makes us free, and I appreciate this opportunity to bring truth to light.
Well, I thank you all so much for making yourselves available and distributing this information.
We appreciate you, brother.
Thank you. All right, so let's say thank you, and I've been your host, Brother R.A. The brother had just too much to say. Yo, yes, we got Q up in the house. Stay tuned for Down East Kaylee coming up right here on WMBR Cambridge 88.1 FM with more Black Resistance. And Nina La Negra, take us on out of here with my legalness.
Black Library is a bookseller specializing in African American literature. Black Library operates a push cart at Dudley Station every weekday from 10 a.m. until 6 p.m. On the web at theblacklibrary.com. That's the Black Library, one word, .com. If you like Black Talk, you might like Super 16 AM Soul Gold Radio with Bobby G. He's been doing Super 16 Soul Gold for 24 years, Monday and Thursday, 10 p.m. on 1600 AM. A staunch supporter of Black Talk Radio. You can obtain a copy of this or any other Black Talk Radio program by calling...
By looking up brotherra.com, and let me go ahead and begin to pack up. I'm going to give you the overview and just, mind control. Are we being played? Are we victims? Are we being subjugated? Are we mere pawns in the chess game? Are we being victimized? Are you aware that you are being manipulated one way or another? I got 50 seconds left. I got to get ready and put this place back in order so girlfriend can come in here and do her thing. But, I have been your host, Brother R.A., dealing and coping with sensitive issues of mind control. Are you aware that, the blue light and the red light thing, that was deep. And, that's right too. I didn't get high for this show, so, all of this is real Brother R.A. in his right mind. Can you imagine me high? I will be showing those excerpts on the, my YouTube and all of that will be airing those thoughts. But thanks, bye.